So I think last time we saw this a studio assembly called assembly debugging, which is available as a samples inside Workday Studio. So we saw how a write component would be written, how a call would go with, how a splitter would work, even XSLTs and everything. So I think this is something we had already done. Okay, and through the supporting as a service, we have used scalability, advanced Workday Studio concept. I think these are the things we have already covered. What is Workday programming languages? These are things. Basics of integration attributes, sequence generator, and map. These are the things I've already shown you. Maps, maybe I'll configure one for you just to show. It basically works like the same way we did for core connector, then route component we have discussed. I think that's about the content. But let's do certain assemblies more. So I think one of the key things that goes in during the studio trainings is like launching the integration through Studio. So I will just first, I think I will deploy this integration on button and deploy to work. Remove this and make sure that the only assembly I have for configuration is the one I want to deploy. I'll go ahead and I'll like be try to run this integration on schedule. Okay, it does not have any launch parameter. I'll just click on OK. So the integration completed. What all we had the integration invocation. In the output files, we have worker summary.xml. That is the file we created. Like after getting the worker output, sample output from get worker, which they already wrote here with worker response. What they're doing is taking each employee, doing it in a splitter. On the basis of each employee, they are doing some XSLT transformation. And once that is done, they are aggregating into one file, and which is with the header and footer tag as summaries, and then they are saving this integration the integration output as worker summary.xml. You see, this is file name has been declared, which is the same file name we have on the output on the integration event. And then we have two messages being printed. Output document is attached, and then there is an error code processing record for 212 workers. PVC complex invalid found starting the amazing one like it. And this is just an info message. So let me just go ahead and open the file. So this is the output now. You see the header, the main header of this XML output is summary. So that is what we gave on our aggregator, that we aggregate each of the workers, like worker summary 1, worker summary 2. These are like different workers, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, and 4. So each of them are getting aggregate within the header and footer of summary. So this is what our output looks like. And let me go back and show you how to run an integration from a studio. So what we do is like go here, go to start here, on site working there. Okay, on server. See, if you run this integration through the web, through the Java application or Eclipse tool, what we call as Workday Studio, and you go to the process monitor, this is what it will look like. It is different. I think did we already see sometime? Yeah, because this is March 11 event. I think the integration we created hello world for that. Yeah, debug. Then go that is the integration. So this is verify. Today, I think I'll take this concept of running later because I'm not able to find either because this configuration is being set up in a different manner. Otherwise, it would just run and come up here in the process monitor. But let's do one thing. I think I'll give you a quick assignment for 10 to 12 minutes, and in the meantime, I'll also work on it in the background. Guys, everyone, you have to create a Workday integration system where you will be calling get worker web service Okay, and with those get worker web service, what you will be doing is splitting, at least do till splitter, like we did for reports. We call the report, right? Trust report. At this time, we will be calling web service, get worker web service, and we will be splitting those records. And for each of the records, what you will be doing is like just maybe just print it on a log, and or if you want to store, you can do that as well based upon the splitter conditions for each worker, which would be similar to this. For each worker, WD worker, you will be just splitting the record and writing it on a log or maybe storing it on a slide or whatever you want. But at least do that, like you start a web service, like you start an integration, you call a web service, and then you capture the output onto a component, and then from there on you take it to a splitter and split each of the records. Okay, and I think that would not take much time, so would be just 10 minutes, and you will get a fair idea how a report or a web service call would be done. So just to recap, we would be needing a start here, and then we would be needing a write component to write the web service content. Okay, and then calling the Workday out soap that will help you call the report and then call the web service and get all the data you need, and then splitting it would be after it. Okay. Any questions? That way you will also get to know if your studios are currently being configured rightly or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried. I couldn't configure that rest. I totally forgot because
That's okay.
I was trying to copy the same project that we did, right? I believe the only thing we need to change is to out soap to out rest. But it was throwing me so many errors. I don't know. Maybe during copy I made some mistake. I don't know.
That to present your share screen, maybe we'll quickly review it, and that
Yeah.
or maybe anyone else who has done it a bit closer to the what the request was, like problem statement was. Anyone who's been able to configure the out soap.
I'm trying, but not yet completed.
Okay. So will you, if I'll give you 5 more minutes, will it be fine for you? Would you be able to, or do you want to share your screen right now and then we can go ahead and configure it?
I think same problem with that, right? Say, I'm just trying to recollect what we did. So I'm just looking into it.
No worries. So what I'll do is like, I'll go back, share my screen.
Can you copy the existing project and do so that we will also know how you are copying?
So you can just better create from a scratch. That is more easier if you want to do, say, but you want to try and see the copy thing?
Yeah, so I just copy this, and then I right clicked on the blank space, copy, and then I just pasted it. Is that how it works?
No, actually, you have to import, right?
Import.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's one of the ways to do it. But what you do is like first go ahead, open new Workday assembly project. Okay. Give it a name, RM, WWS call. So it will call this. So now that's done. And if you want to go ahead and copy the assembly flow, ideally you should not copy this way because it will create a lot of problems, like the background associations and things will go south. That is not the way you should be like starting from, even if you have certain things to be configured, but I'll still show you maybe copy. So what I did is like created a copy page.
Only the assembly.
Yes.
Okay.
And then on the properties, I do not say report service because this would be a web service call. Retrieval I'll also delete. Sequence generator I'm letting it be. What we're doing is start date tracer also not required, but let it be. Okay. I'll do is like create the main thing for you guys is to create a write step. So since it's a call or a web service call, you first have to write the web service onto your studio. So we'll create a write step. I'll use the same assembly probably to get the create worker one. Will need anything else, and then headers. I'll write the web here. Okay. Exclude inactive workers through as of effective date. Now again, what they have done is like given a specific kind of effective date. What I'll do is like create launch parameters, which I already have, I believe, date and end date. What I'll do is change these two. So, yes, you can see D and 3. Okay. These are two launch parameters.
So you saw the launch parameter from the XML?
So the launch parameter from XML as in?
I mean, how did you get those launch parameters?
I'm creating those launch parameters.
Okay. I mean, you should know what are the exact launch parameters that the service need, right?
Right. You see this response filter? These are the two dates which are filled in here. Okay.
So that
So
is the
they have what
response.
they have done. Yes. They have the response filter. So that is what is required to give it as a filter to get the response. Like
launch
you
parameter.
run prompts, right, on the report. That's what.
Okay.
So
in a typical scenario, I mean this particular XML you copied from one another assembly, right? Say in a live scenario, how do I get this XML? I mean,
this is a web service call. So I told you, right? One of the things to
there is a tool.
do is right to get the web service request, or even I cannot show you Workday Community, but once you're certified, when you have access to Workday Community, so they have that web service. All these web services are highlighted or like present on their community page with a directory. So each in that directory, each of these web services are there, and then within the web service, you will have that request and response XML. What you'll do is like get the request XML, and that will open up the thing for you. So all you need to do is
copy that XML and bring it here, and remove whatever you don't want.
Right. Remove whatever you don't want. Give your logical parameters what you want. And
so if I create a custom report as a web service, in that case, I can copy the XML again through the same process, or is there a way that I can copy from the custom report?
For a report, you do not need a SOAP request, right? For a report,
just an asking. I know the report can be used directly, but since it can be configured as web services, that is also possible, right?
Right. So what you do is like you go in
that
here,
web link there.
Okay, ZTL. That is one of the things. But since for reports, what we call as RAS, we already have this inbuilt parameter or thing, right? So that's why we do not want to do that whole trouble of writing or getting the XML and then getting. So all we do is like just configure the report into our tenants, and we are good to. You see this execute report. Now if I'll open this web service, you see this is
just use that.
What?
Okay.
Yes. Usually this report web services, you will not be using it in a studio.
Correct.
But rather you would be using it like well, I think the most common form of using a report is maybe just exposing the API to the vendor. So we do not go ahead and create integrations if they want to just get the data, get certain data. And say one of the most common use cases is chatbot operations. So MS Teams has a good chatbot which is like configured with Workday, or other chatbots which we usually develop these days. Like say there is a chat will get you all the benefit details or your worker details within that chatbot, and you do not have to search for anything else. So what it does is in the background, it will call these custom reports and web services on its own. Say you ask a question, give me my leave history for last year. So if that is a relevant thing that or flow that has been configured in the chatbot, what it will do is like once you have triggered that question in the background, it will go and fire a particular report which will get you all the leave details for 1 year. Okay. So once that is done, this kind of a web service call will be made, and you will get a response, and the response will be structured in a particular manner on the chatbot platform. And UI purpose for a user, it will just give you the information, say in a tabular manner or whatever manner they have designed the flow for.
Okay. And this request basically has what is the web service, what is the launch parameters, what are the field required. That's the template, right? Okay.
Right. Okay. So what I did is get those props in here. I will then date entry date again, entry DT. Will get the prompt. So this is a similar thing that we did for custom report calling. We gave the integration to launch parameters, start date and end date. Here we are giving effective date and entry date. And we are just calling these effective date and entry date parameters onto a report, onto a prop. Now we are saving this onto prop CFDT and prop entry DT. And on the web service request, what I'll do is like this, go to the report as of effective date. So this is how to clear this. And this is this is typically done. Okay. So instead of output, what I'll do is like call the Workday output, call this, and yeah, I will call. Okay, now again, this goes to the section where we get the web service. So inside, like all these web services are defined in a particular kind of application or a subset. So for get workers, this is on the application name would be human resources. And version, what we can do is get it from web service, call it were highlighted and I had that next. So we're still, so you see, we have all these subsections or applications as we call. So that's how we get the application as human resources. And this is human resources that all the web service, including get workers, there goes like this. So we have all the web services. Get worker is one of them. So get worker is this one. And what we have the request message. You see, and it says request message. So what we do is like open this in a web service, just the details. Okay. And the version having is 45.0. What I'm doing is just calling it into when I get the response original WWS output. I'm not processing it for now. I am just calling it, getting the web long. I don't think we need. And that's it. Let's try to deploy the Workday. Save, let it be.
So in the SOAP, you just gave the human resource and the version. That's it, right?
Version. Yes.
Nothing else.
And nothing else. Assembly, debug, okay. Deployed. Okay. So the integration is here. This is deployed. That's fine. So rather, I'll show you one thing. I will show you the thing I was asking. So I was looking at the wrong place, and then I realized when I gave you that assignment that to launch the integration from the studio, we do not have to look into Project Explorer. Rather, we have to look into the integration on the Cloud Explorer. So this is like the integrations which are available on the tenant. So once it has been deployed, it will come here as well. You can not this one. I'll close this. And then we have this start here component. Okay. So when we right click on start here component, we will get an option to launch integration. On the launch integration, you see this is a dialog box that has appeared and it will ask you to select a particular date. I will give entry moment and okay, and entry date and effective date as today's date. Okay, this is similar to you launching an integration on the UI or web browser, and there is a page integration event page that appears where you will have to enter the values for the launch parameters. And I'll click on launch. So it will take you to the process monitor tab inside the studio, and you'll see this particular integration is running and it is saying preparing for now. And this is the button to refresh. So this is This will be capturing everything that the integration event will have on the UI. This particular event on the process monitor will have the same thing completed with error. So you see, this says it completed with error. So there are very crucial options available to us to view in here. So we can directly view the log file. We can have the view request message. We can get the view consolidated report, which is very important for studio processing or error. When you run this into a studio or debug, or these are really like helpful when you want to debug an integration in the studio rather than going and running on the UI again and again, but running it on the studio level to get the details of the event. So what it does is, like, if you replay the thing, so it will show you the message. Okay, it went to start here, it went to eval. On the eval, it gave an error and it went to send error cleared. Okay, so we have an error on the eval and it says error eval ID like com.clear lp.get reference data label type failed to evaluate. Okay, I think I've left a particular eval which has a reference data parameter. Okay, let me just remove that. I think sequence generator as is. Yeah, so I'll redeploy this. Again, you'll have to go to assembly, deploy, you have to go to ZTL, tenant, next, when it says deployed. Okay. Now let's do a refresh of the Cloud Explorer tenant so that it gets the latest version. We'll open the particular integration you want, and then we'll go to launch integration again. Now, if you'll see, now it's not asking you to what we call ask for the launch parameters because it is capturing from the last event that you configured. But if you want to change, you can do it from here, create new launch configuration, and then it will again ask you to get the details, but I'll do it again and just put today's date. Otherwise, it will use the last launch configuration you made from the studio assembly. Okay, so now it's again saying the integration. You see, it's preparing. Now again, it completed with errors. Let's go to the consolidated report. Okay, this time the error on the eval got cleared. So what you can do is like go to replay on the assembly. Now focus on this. You see, start here is processing, eval is processing, write is processing. Then on worked out soap, it came as error. And since we have opened handle downstream error as true in here, so this particular error handler is putting the message, raising the message as error in the summary of the error. But let's go back, consolidate report error, and send error. Okay, this is the error. So we have scope. This is exclude business site hierarchies, alt invalid settlement, exclude business element, exclude business site hierarchies, BSP for element scope. It would cause bad request response. Okay, I believe that's the thing we copied. Has the faulty thing is it get worker. Okay, Workday include business keys WD. Why is this not valid?
It's there, right? The business site,
Sorry?
the tag.
Yeah, business site, but I do not see any faulty thing with it. Exclude business site hierarchy, exclude fault code to validate for invalid sub element, exclude business site R keys for element worker group to the web. What they for this business unit? Okay, so maybe business. So what this debug assembly had was different kind of a previous version of the web service that was used. So what we'll do is like go back to properties 45.0. The latest version we are trying to use does not have this tag. I will go ahead and delete this. And I hope or maybe at least resolve this error. And that's how you modified save. And that's how you try to debug your assemblies inside Studio. Like you will read each of the errors that are coming in. You can do it rather go to the UI and read the custom view reports or messages on the event, as well as you can just run this integration in here. Okay. So I WWS call integration. launch. You go ahead, refresh it for a longer period now. So it is actually processing and writing it on the log. So refresh this. So yeah, this got completed. You see, I will get the view consolidated report. I'll replay the assembly flow. Did it went right? It started with start here, eval, and then log. Okay. So what we can do is view the view log file from the studio itself, and then we have this XML. Okay, perfect.
This replay is equivalent to the debug.
Replay is like just like how to view the flow went. Debug is different. So debug
Okay.
in this particular integration, I will show you debug on a later stage.
Yeah.
But I've tried it already. It is not working on this particular configuration of Studio because of the JDK version they are using. Okay, I'll get this and try to open a notepad and show you the response. Is it tenanted? Again, since this is a log file, it will have a limited characters value. It has truncated the request, and if I'll go in, get worker response criteria. 1 second. Give me a minute. If I'll back and resolve this so that I can show you on the XML file where is worker, last worker, control F, worker will up. Okay. The worker, and this is one of the workers which is ending. I'll remove these tags from in here and put the as we have an envelope is one, body is other, get work. Okay, criteria. To load of continue. Continue. New XML document data. We close. Then get worker response will close, then and one body will close, and then envelope will close. Okay, then the code is all done, and then they are pretty printed. Okay, you see, this is the response we got on out of our web service call, and we printed on the log. So we have this response in envelope, soak envelope, and then so body. Inside the save body, this is the web service output. Get worker response. Okay, inside we get worker response, we have the criteria exclude inactive workers and response filter. This is the launch parameter we gave on our integration. So it captures the launch parameter you have sent to the event. Then this captures the count, then page one, then count, and then total number response result 932 total pages this. And these are the worker details. Okay, so inside this, if you want to do a splitter, so what it'll do is like get inside Workday envelope body, so worker response, and inside worker response, you will get to response data, and inside response data, there would be WT worker. So you'll be splitting till from this X path, envelope body, response, get worker response, then response data, and then WT worker. So when you use that splitter, it will split based upon these elements from here till the point or the worker data is getting ended. For permissions, this is a web service request, and a lot of fields and everything is outputted. You'll see each worker having a lot of data on its tags. If you want to see the output, you see worker is preference, and then inside worker there we have worker data. Inside worker data we have personal data, we have employment data, we have compensation data, and we have organization data. So these are the three sub inside the worker response, and this is the closing of each one of the workers. Okay, so that's how it is structured, and all the values are in here. So say you want to do the similar processing of getting a splitter in here and splitting for each of the workers, what you'll be doing is like getting that envelope and then body. I think assembly debug would be using the same kind of splitter in here. You see envelope, body, get worker response, WD response data, and then inside WD response data you have.
Is that the same splitter strategy or is it a different one? I think it's different, right?
For this they are using
Stream
XML stream
splitter.
splitter, and where there you can use what we were using, since we were using, and I think we are also using it.
But the parameter is different, huh? Because we didn't give the namespace, I believe.
No, we did give the namespace. They are not giving the namespace, so that is because they're not actually doing it. But yes, but it's good to give a namespace. And again, the namespace, what you can do is like get from the response filter only and provide the namespace. These are the namespaces, two namespaces that you would be using. One is WD, the other is N1, an ENV environment. Namespace is nothing but the starting of your workday, like response or request tags. So this is WD or ENV. What are these? This XML processing or a splitter or anything which you're using inside or even outside of Studio in your XSLTs or Oxygen XMLs. They need to identify that what are these. So you just need.
So there are two namespace. Which one we are going to use in this case?
You will declare both. You'll just put in the same line. You'll declare different. Like in here. 1 second. I think since we already have this, what we can do is like environment and then declare the env namespace as well. Okay, so that's how you declare. But yes, mostly at time splitters, since we are using the singular document or same document having the same namespace, it won't get confused. So that's why it works. But it's a good practice to clear namespace in case you're working with different XML documents, like you have in the assembly a custom report as well as a web service call. So custom report will come up with, say, any kind of namespace, report namespace that you have defined inside your custom report definition. On the advanced tabs, we have that namespace, right? So that would be used. And in web services, you will get a default namespaces as defined on the web service. Okay, so once this is there, what you can do is like again go to splitter and do the same processing. But the main concept was to how to write a web service call and then call this and make sure that it is working and outputting a response with the web service response of the worker details in it. Okay. Any questions or queries on it? Any questions on how we launch the integration from Studio within the Studio? You want to see it once more or explore more things on it? Because if we'll go in here,
So
you'll see
before like starting of the class, you haven't able to launch it, right? So how you got it again?
that's what I was saying, right? Like I told you when I show you that I was looking on the Project Explorer, so that's not the right place. So
Okay.
I was just
In that Cloud Explorer.
yeah,
Right?
Project Explorer is not the right place. We have to launch it on the tenant. So tenant is where we launch, right? So
Okay.
that's where. So if I'll go in here, and usually what we look for is start here component. So if I was clicking on the start here, right, like I was pressing the right button on instead right key on the mouse, it was giving me options for Workday integration system, but rather it should be giving something like this. So that's why I realized I was clicking at the long place. So we have two options available: launch integration as well as debug integration. So launch integration I showed you, but debug I'll show you, right? It will give an error because the JDK that is being installed on this server or for this studio is not working properly. It will throw an error. JDK is required. Okay. So this is similar to launch, but what it does is like it will give you a kind of capability to stop your assembly flow and prompt the user to move ahead only when you have declared toggle points. So this is a smaller assembly. I will show you on this. So this particular debug assembly, what we have is different kind of subsections, right? So we have created the subsection called the web service. We have get the response. Now we are calling to process the response. So I declare, right click on him here and then say toggle assembly point. So it will highlight, come up with this blue dot. Okay. So toggle assembly point and then yes, to a breakpoint. And then this also I have declared as toggle assembly breakpoint. So when I launch this particular integration. So for this particular integration, I think assembly debug is the integration that we need to look. And if I launch this integration, from in here, like under debug mode, what it will do is like get your flow running till here, and see for any toggle points. Then it receives a toggle point in here, and then after this, it will prompt a value, or a window will pop up on your studio, and it will ask you that should we move ahead or not, that you want the assembly flow to move ahead or wait. So it will ask the user to move ahead, and if you want to debug anything till this flow, any error is coming, you can go and debug that and review the error. Otherwise, what you can do is like click on next, and it will start processing the next component. So from in here, it will go to the declaration, it will go, the flow will come here, and once the aggregator processing has been done, it will come back to store. Now again on store, I have a breakpoint, so it will break the assembly flow in here, and again a window will pop up for the user to move to the next step. Continue processing the studio assembly. If you say yes, it will go to the next component and print the message on your integration event.
Okay. And so only we can launch the integration in Workday Studio when it is deployed to the tenant only. We cannot.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Because you, again, that's the thing, the place I was looking wrong. So we have this tendency, since we are deploying, that we use the assembly directly and deploy from the project explorer. So that's the tendency. But when you want to run this, you'll have to run it on the tenant, right? This is where it will find the details, like get worker. How will it know what workers to fetch until it's deployed onto a tenant? So that's why we need to deploy it on a tenant, and then from the tenant in the Cloud Explorer rather than from the Project Explorer, you'll have to go to the Start Here component of this particular assembly. So you'll not get the integration launch in here, or that would be the grayed out. But the only way to do is like go to the Start Here component, and on the Start Here you do a right click and then launch a debug. Debug will also open the flow in a similar way what we have in the consolidated view, right? But it will stop on the toggle breakpoint. Say I had declared the toggle breakpoint at eval, okay? So it will stop at this eval and ask you to move ahead, or you want to get some processing done. Okay, so one is that, I think, load report view.
Can we schedule Workday integration in the Workday or Workday Studio, or we need to do it in tenant?
No, Studio, I don't think you can. Like, scheduling is done when you are done with it and when you're doing in production. So usually that's where you are done. So you do not have, or you do not use Studio from there. What you do is like go to the integration event and have, the way I showed you, launch it from the production event or save it on the production event, and that will be restricted to production. So that every time the other tenants are available, they are not running the integration from the lower tenants, only production tenant is running. So that's why you do not do it from in here. This is only while you are developing or debugging, like launching the integrations from the studio or debugging the integration from studio. That's why we do not have an option to schedule.
Okay. I am having one query. Regarding the debugging, it will show the data or it will show only the message? Means if I am having 10 records, 5 records are processed correctly and 6 record I am having error. It will show that error record.
It will not show the error record because that's not you are doing it inside the assembly call. It will show that something went wrong on this particular component. It will not give you which particular, if you have handled it right. Like say in the error handler, you are capturing something that if it breaks, it highlights you the worker, or if it gets into the detail, specific detail, then only it will highlight. Otherwise, it will say you are processing in here, and out of few records, there is an eval that is happening. It is processing right for everyone. But say worker ID for one worker ID is usually not missing. It is available for each and every, but say first name or last name or worker ID is not available, and that is configured in a way that it should error out when it is not available. So it will highlight this error that, okay, we have encountered this error while creating a prop getting the value of this prop first name, which is not available. But to capture which worker, that is where we use these logs, right? So what we'll do is like create a log in front of it, and we will try to capture the worker ID in here on that log. So when you see the log on the server log on the integration event or the studio, you'll get a fair idea. Okay, the processing was happening for this employee, so it has printed this particular employee ID, and then this is the place where it errored out. So I have to focus on this particular employee. That's how you do it. Unless until you get the error messages right, it will not turn generic. But yes, that's where you use the log mechanism to capture each and every event that is inside happening in the message assembly.
Okay.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, or you're
Yes.
still in doubt. Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do is like, say you're saying I want to know which employee ID it errored out. So probably you will create a text in here and try to get the XPath for the or value for that particular employee ID and print in here. So every time it comes here after splitting, say it splitted employee ID 1, it will write employee ID 1 in process and it will do the rest of the processing. If it is fine, it will come back and do employee ID 2, and say on employee ID 4 it gives an error. So this log will first print employee ID 4 and say this eval was something that was erroring out. So it will error out. The last message or thing will be printed as the error, and that particular message on the integration event will be published. So what you can do is like debug from here that, okay, the last time this employee ID was getting processed and this particular employee has an error. So you can then isolate your error to that particular employee, see if the value is something which is missing or not.
After correcting that error, can I go ahead with the debug process, or have to start from the first onwards?
You can debug is also like similar. You'll have to, if you want to launch the integration again after your process has been done, you'll have to relaunch the integration.
Can you live example, like, which is already we have, like, you built an integration, right? Because this debugging is like the process. You are saying the step to step, but like, if we see the live, we can understand, like,
That's why every day I'm saying the debug is not working for RDP. So they have this JDK process that is not configured right. That's why if I'll try to say debug integration, what I'm trying to say is it's similar to launch. The way we saw that launch, you see, that JDK is not properly configured. So they're using too low, but I think since this is an RDP, they are using a central kind of software configuration. There is certain error that is happening. Even I'm not aware how the studio has been configured. So, but this is similar to what we do in launch integration. It will give you a consolidated report like this. It will error out anything which is available. Like say, I will take the in process events like with error, and you see this had an error, right? So it will show you the error in here. Okay, if I'll click on this, it will get you the error like this, failure message. You can get it from in here as well. The launch parameters you launch the integration for. So yeah, I cannot show you currently what debugger can do, but this is quite similar to when you launch the integration. The only thing you have is like mark assembly breakpoints on the assembly, and then it will ask you to move ahead or stop on particular breakpoint.
Question on the error handling. See, in this screen, the one we are seeing, there are two error handlings, right? There is one right there, and there is one on the process worker. The splitter doesn't have an error handler. So how it will handle the error when it fails in the splitter?
I've told you, right? Like if this particular does not have an error handler, it will not move ahead, but it will look for the last component which has this property as handle downstream error.
But if you don't have downstream error as true?
Yeah, this is defaulted as false. So what it will do is like an generic error will, the message assembly will
like a runtime error
collapse, and yeah, it will give you a generic. It will not give you a
Okay.
particular response like what we have for here, right?
Got it. I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
error and then a summary. No workers were returned on the web service call. This particular error will not happen, but a default error for the splitter, that a processing error happened while processing the splitter or something.
Right. But you told us like there is a generic global error handler. Right. So if you have that component in the place, if you have that component, any failure will trigger to that particular.
Exactly. Right. So what it will do is like what we saw, right?
Yeah, you created in your. Yeah, there you go.
WWS also. So if you remember, these are like completed with errors. Why? Because whenever there was a error happening, maybe I did not handle it in here, or say on the report, on the eval, if this was not there, what it will do is like it will go to the global error handler, it will complete with error. If the error is not handled, it will fail. The status of the integration will say failed. Integration failed. That when it fails, it does not give you details of the error because you have not handled the error. But if you have at least put up the global error handler, it will be
completed with error. But otherwise, the message which is returned into the specific error handler and the global error handler will be same?
No. So global error handler will have a global kind of. You do not.
It's more generic. Okay.
Right. It will be in specific. It will it is kind of a sub-assembly of its own. It will do an info, it will do a warning, it will do a critical error based upon the error returned to it.
Okay.
It will define. You do not have to define. All you need to do is define the error handlers on the local.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I believe you guys have not been doing any hands-on, but I will strictly advise you that at least this activity I gave you for the call, you do this and you try to do it ahead, get the response into a splitter and then get it into a file, maybe print it on a file, maybe with a sequence generator or any kind of dynamic file name that you want to create using an eval. That is fine with me. But yes, try to rebuild this integration from your own. Do not copy anything. Try to do it from scratch. You will get a fair idea what all things are there on Start Here, because I've explained you a number of times the options available on Start Here, but unless until you do this, you will not be able to remember it. Okay, for launch parameter, where do I have to go first so that I can have a launch parameter when we launch an integration? How do we create a web service call for a RAS report? So, okay, I'll have to create a service first, because for SOAP web services, you do not have to do anything. You just have to have a write. But for RAS reports, you have to create a RAS service first on your services.